Hello, divine creations, divine marvels, children of God. Deep, deep namaste, deep, deep bow. So, my name is Arthur, and as you'll notice, Arthur speaks in third person. It's a really fun, simple yana yoga practice. And one thing that Arthur does is he leads people through the 12 steps. The 12 steps are the original version of the 12 steps, which what they used to be, they've very much evolved and changed, but the original 12 steps started out as was really a path of surrendering to God, having a life-changing spiritual experience, and then dedicating your life to spiritual growth, to connection to God and service. It was truly a profound process. It's sadly been very watered down. But one thing Arthur does, is lead people through the 12 steps. And the last two people I've led through the steps have felt very fearful at the thought of surrendering to God. And the reason why is they felt that they were just going to vanish, that they were going to die, that they were going to become nothing. And in fact, the last person that Arthur is actually currently working with at the time of this video, this person mentioned Ramana Maharshi. And this person said, well, what if, I don't want to become, like Ramana Maharshi and have no personality left and just sit around and do nothing. And sadly, this is a very common image that's, presented about Ramana Maharshi. And Arthur thinks some of it comes from the whole Neo-Advaita word game. A lot of modern satsang teachers really don't teach Advaita Vedanta or teach non-duality. They just play a very complicated word game and say things like, yes, there's no personality anymore, when this is utterly ridiculous. Ramana Maharshi had quite the personality. Yes, he spent quite a bit of time in stillness and sitting, and he cultivated relationships with animals. He said that he was actually guiding the animals and teaching them, and he built very specific relationships with different animals. Not only that, but he had different relationships with the devotees who were close to him. He was a total lover. He loved God. He actively, his favorite thing to do was to hike Arunachala. And the only reason he stopped was because so many people followed him around. If he hadn't been discovered, he probably would have spent his whole life just wandering the sacred hill, Arunachala, because he loved it so much. He wrote love poems to Arunachala as if Arunachala was his husband and he was a wife pining away for Arunachala. He would tell stories from the Indian epics, and then he would take on the characteristics of the different characters in the epics. His voice would change, and he would act, and he would literally kind of become that person, the person in the epic, and speak in a different voice and be very dramatic. So this idea that enlightenment leads to some kind of deadness is absurd. And of course, Ramana Maharshi was a very yin expression of enlightenment. But take a look at Amachi. She's a force of nature. She is quite the, she's like, in classical Advaita Vedanta, there's none of this talk about getting rid of the personality. That's completely absurd and not what Adi Shankara talked about at all. There is the personality becomes refined. And in some ways, we take Ramana or Amachi, when the personality gets refined and there's enough immersion in the self, this kind of super personality emerges. Anyone who's not familiar with Amachi, she's a non-stop service sadhana, like living machine. She just, she's a force of nature. So the purpose of this video was to dispel these myths about Ramana, but simultaneously to help dispel some of the myths about enlightenment. about moksha and about Advaita Vedanta. The thing is most people who are teaching Advaita are not actually teaching Advaita. They borrowed a little language and they've kind of made up this little teeny tiny, and that's actually what this channel is really about, is Arthur's recovery from that and helping other people to really understand what is non-duality and what's kind of made up non-duality. Thank you so much for joining in. So have fun. The thing is, in Arthur's understanding, and he has some experience of it, it's not permanent yet. It's not about ending personality. It's just about non-identification. The personality doesn't go away. It's just there's lack of identification. The technical term is lack of identification with the physical body or the subtle body. In yogic terms, there's two systems of different bodies we have. This one is the three-body system: physical body, subtle body, and causal body. The causal body being more the unconscious, and the subtle body having many, many different components. But the short version is the subtle body is what people think of as their personality, the doer, the ego. So let's just sit with all this for a little bit. We'll see if there's anything else that wants to be said. The words that come are, Ramana Maharshi had one of the strongest personalities Arthur has ever heard of. It's just not strong in the normal sense of the word. He wasn't forceful by any means, but he was absolutely himself. He cried on the day of Gandhi's assassination. And as he was leaving his body, he cried as his devotees sang to him Arunachala Shiva, the very song. They sang to him the mantra Arunachala Shiva and sang to him the very love poem that he had written to Arunachala, and tears of joy were beaming from his eyes. So, devotees, there's one amazing story where when his body was sick, his devotees wanted him to rest. And so they put up a sign saying, please don't come in the darshan hall during the hours of, like 2 p.m. to 5 p.m. Arthur doesn't remember the exact hours. And instead of arguing with the devotees during those hours, Ramana just would go outside the darshan hall and sit outside so that he could still give darshan. Instead of saying, no, that's wrong, take the sign down. He didn't even do that. He just at some point became aware of the sign, and then he did his own thing. And that's actually what we're each here to do, is to do our own thing without the sense that, I don't know, we're doing it. It's a profound mystery. Thank you so much. Take care.